It was a quiet Sunday morning in the small town of Maplewood, where everyone knew everyone. The sky was soft gray, and fallen leaves covered the streets in shades of gold and red. Emily Carter, a 26-year-old journalist, was driving through the old part of town, looking for something interesting to decorate her small apartment. She loved vintage things, and garage sales were her weekend hobby. When she saw a sign that said "Estate Sale, Everything Must Go," she stopped. The house was old, made of faded bricks, with a wooden porch that creaked under her feet. An elderly woman stood near the entrance, smiling kindly. "Good morning, dear," the woman said. "Looking for something special?" Emily smiled back. "Just browsing. I love old furniture." Inside the house, everything smelled like dust and old books. Emily's eyes stopped on a wooden writing desk, scratched and worn but still beautiful. She ran her hand across it. "How much for this?" she asked. The woman thought for a moment. "Oh, that old thing? $50. It used to belong to my husband. He was the sheriff here many years ago." Emily hesitated, then nodded. "I'll take it." By afternoon, the desk was in her apartment. She made herself coffee, put on some music, and began cleaning it. As she wiped the drawers, one of them felt heavier than the others. She pulled it out and something rattled inside. She looked closer. The back panel of the drawer seemed a little loose. Curious, she pressed on the side, and a small wooden piece popped open. Inside, she found a folded, yellowed paper. Her heart beat a little faster. It was a diary page, torn from a notebook. The handwriting was delicate, shaky, and old-fashioned. At the top, it said, "March 11, 1994. Emily read slowly, her fingers trembling. "He said no one will ever find out what happened to Lily. But I can't stop thinking about it. The lake still haunts me." She froze. The words didn't sound like fiction. They sounded like a confession. She grabbed her laptop and searched, "Lily missing Maplewood 1994. Dozens of old news clippings appeared all about a 17-year-old girl named Lily Matthews, who disappeared on her way home from school. Her body was never found. The case had gone cold after a few months. No clues. No arrests. It was as if Lily had vanished into thin air. Emily leaned back in her chair, staring at the screen. "This diary page, it's from someone who knew what happened," she whispered. She took a photo of the page and posted it on a local history forum, asking if anyone remembered the case. Within minutes, people started commenting. "I remember her. That poor girl vanished. My dad said the cops looked for her for months. That case ruined the sheriff's career." Emily's eyes widened. The sheriff, that must have been Mrs. Hill's husband, the same woman who sold her the desk. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She sat at her desk, staring at the diary page under a small lamp. The edges were torn, and a few words were faded, but one line was clear. "If someone finds this, maybe the truth will finally come out." It felt like the page was speaking directly to her. At midnight, she opened her laptop again. "What if I turn this into an article?" she thought. "Maybe I can help solve what happened to Lily Matthews." She titled the draft, "The Lost Girl of Maplewood: A Forgotten Mystery." She began writing about the old desk, the diary page, the mystery that never got closure. She felt both scared and excited. This could be the biggest story of her career. After posting the article on her small online blog, she finally lay down to rest. The glow of her computer screen faded, and the apartment went silent. A few hours later, her phone buzzed. Half asleep, she reached for it. A new email notification flashed on the screen: no subject, no sender name. When she opened it, there was only one line. "Stop digging. Some stories are better left buried." Emily sat up, her heart racing. She looked around the dark apartment, nothing but silence. The email was sent from an unknown address. She tried replying, but it bounced back instantly. Her fingers trembled as she read the message again. Who would send that? How did they know she was writing about the case? She got up and double-checked her door locks. Then she carefully placed the diary page inside a zip bag and hid it in her bedside drawer. She turned off the lights, but her mind wouldn't stop spinning. The words from the diary and the warning email echoed in her head. He said no one will ever find out what happened to Lily. Stop digging. Some stories are better left buried. 2 sentences from 2 different people connected by fear. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees. A branch tapped against her window, making her jump. She laughed nervously, trying to calm herself. It's just the wind, she whispered. But when she looked toward her window again, she saw something. A shadow, tall, still standing just beyond the light, watching her apartment. Her breath caught. She blinked, and the shadow was gone. Maybe it was just her imagination. Maybe not. She closed the curtains quickly and whispered to herself. I'm going to find out what really happened to Lily Matthews, no matter what. As the night grew quiet again, the old desk sat in the corner still, silent, holding its secret. And deep inside, Emily didn't realize yet that one single diary page had just opened the door to a 30-year-old mystery. And someone out there wasn't going to let her uncover it easily. The next morning, Emily Carter woke up tired. She had barely slept after seeing that shadow outside her window. The warning email still haunted her thoughts. But the journalist in her refused to stop. She made herself a cup of coffee and sat at the old wooden desk. The diary page was still there, resting under a glass paperweight. The faded ink almost seemed to whisper a story that had waited decades to be told. I'm not giving up, Emily said softly. She opened her laptop and started digging deeper into the Lily Matthews case. Old articles, police reports, missing person posters, she read them all. The details were chilling. Lily was 17 when she disappeared one evening after school. She was last seen near Maplewood Lake, walking home. Her parents had searched for months, but no body was ever found. The most surprising part? The sheriff who led the case back then was George Hill, the same man whose widow sold Emily the desk. Emily stared at the name. This can't be a coincidence, she whispered. She needed more information. And there was only one person who could help, someone who had been there during the investigation. After some searching, she found a name, Detective Ryan Brooks, the assistant officer on the original case, now retired. He lived only 30 minutes away. By afternoon, Emily was driving down a quiet countryside road. The air smelled of rain and pine. A small sign read Brooks Family Farm. She parked and walked toward a white farmhouse. A tall, gray-haired man opened the door before she could knock. Can I help you? He asked cautiously. Mr. Brooks. Emily smiled nervously. My name is Emily Carter. I'm a journalist. I'm writing about the Lily Matthews case. The man's face changed. He sighed heavily. That name brings back ghosts, Miss Carter. Why dig it up now? I found something, she said, holding up the plastic bag with the torn diary page. Ryan took it carefully and adjusted his glasses. As he read, his expression hardened. Where did you get this? It was hidden inside a desk, Emily explained. I bought it from Mrs. Hill last week. She said it belonged to her husband. Ryan looked shocked. George Hill's desk. She nodded. He motioned for her to come inside. The living room was filled with old photographs and the smell of fresh coffee. Ryan sat down slowly and stared at the page again. I always thought George knew more than he said, Ryan muttered. He closed the case too fast. Said there wasn't enough evidence. But I never believed him. Emily leaned forward. Do you think he was covering something up? Ryan didn't answer right away. He looked toward the window, deep in thought. There was one person everyone suspected at first: Mark Daniels. He was Lily's boyfriend. But there was never proof. He left town a few weeks after she vanished. Started a new life somewhere in Chicago. Emily's mind raced. So he could still be alive. Ryan nodded. Oh, he's alive. I checked once. He's rich now, owns a big real estate company. She took notes quickly. Do you think he could be the one who sent me that warning message? Ryan frowned. What warning? Emily told him about the email and the shadow she saw. The old detective's face turned serious. You need to be careful. When people hide secrets for this long, they'll do anything to keep them buried. He handed the diary page back to her. If you're going to keep digging, do it smart. Start with Mark Daniels. But don't confront him yet. Watch first. Find out what he's hiding. Emily thanked him and promised to stay cautious. But as she drove back toward town, her curiosity burned brighter. That night, Emily searched for Mark Daniels online. His company website showed photos of a successful, confident man in his 50s. Expensive suit, perfect smile, the kind of man who looked like nothing could touch him. She found his email address on a business contact page. Without thinking too much, she typed, Mr. Daniels, I'm writing a feature on the Lily Matthews case from Maplewood. Would you be open to a short interview? She hit send. For 2 days, there was no reply. Then one morning, Emily stepped outside her apartment to go to work and froze. Both her car tires were slashed. Her heart started pounding. The cuts were clean, deep, done with a knife. She looked around. No one was there. The street was silent. She went back inside quickly and locked the door. Her phone buzzed a new message. I told you to stop digging. No name. No number. Just those words. Emily dropped the phone. Her hands shook. This wasn't just about an old case anymore. Someone was watching her. She called Detective Ryan. They know I'm looking, she said in a trembling voice. Calm down, Ryan replied. Listen carefully. Don't tell anyone else what you've found. I'll meet you tomorrow at the police archives. We'll go through the old evidence together. Emily nodded, trying to steady her breathing. Okay. Tomorrow. That night, she sat again at the old desk. The lamp flickered softly. She opened her notebook and wrote in big letters. Who killed Lily Matthews? Below it, she listed 3 names. George Hill, the sheriff who hid the desk. Mark Daniels, the boyfriend who ran away. Someone unknown, the person sending threats. She stared at the list for a long time. The desk creaked slightly as if reminding her it still had more secrets. Emily touched the wood gently. What else are you hiding? She whispered. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. Rain began to fall, tapping against her window. And in the reflection of the glass, for a brief second, she thought she saw that same shadow again watching from across the street. But when she turned to look, it was gone. Emily didn't know it yet, but the next morning at the police archives would reveal something that would change everything she thought she knew about Lily's disappearance. And bring her face to face with the truth that had been buried for 30 years. The next morning, dark clouds hung low over Maplewood. The streets were wet from the night's rain, and a thin fog rolled through the trees. Emily parked her car outside the Maplewood Police Archives, an old red brick building that smelled like dust and secrets. Detective Ryan Brooks was already waiting by the entrance, holding 2 cups of coffee. You look tired, he said kindly. Emily smiled weakly. I didn't sleep much. It feels like someone's watching me all the time. Ryan handed her a cup. They probably are. But that's how you know you're getting close. Inside, the archive room was quiet, just the hum of old lights and the smell of paper. Rows of metal cabinets stood like forgotten soldiers. Ryan led her to a section marked Cold Cases, 1990s. He pulled out a large box labeled Matthews, Lily, 1994. Inside were faded photos, police reports, and a few items sealed in plastic bags. Emily's hands trembled as she picked up a small hair ribbon. This was hers. Ryan nodded. Found near the lake. But no blood, no body. Nothing that could close the case. Emily flipped through the reports. Something caught her eye, a note from Sheriff George Hill written in his neat handwriting. No new evidence. Case closed. Possible runaway. Emily frowned. He called it a runaway. But everyone said Lily was happy. Why would she run away? Ryan sighed. That's what made me angry back then. George shut the case before we could finish. Emily hesitated. Do you think he knew something? Ryan looked at her for a long moment. I think George Hill took a lot of secrets to his grave. As they packed up the box, Emily remembered something. Mrs. Hill mentioned that George kept some things in their attic. Maybe there's more there. Ryan hesitated, then nodded slowly. It's worth checking. But if there's evidence left behind, we'll need to move quietly. Mrs. Hill might not want to talk. That afternoon, they drove to the Hill residence. The house stood on the edge of town, old and lonely, with ivy climbing its walls. Mrs. Hill, frail but sharp-eyed, opened the door. Detective Brooks? It's been a long time, she said softly. Ryan nodded. We're just revisiting the Lily Matthews case, ma'am. Emily found something in George's desk. We were wondering if there's anything else related to that time. Mrs. Hill's smile faded. That case brought George nothing but pain. He hated talking about it. We understand, Emily said gently. But maybe there's something that can finally bring closure for Lily's family. Mrs. Hill looked uncertain, but after a long pause, she said, You can check the attic if you want. George kept old boxes up there. Maybe you'll find something. The attic was cold and dark, lit only by a small dusty window. Emily sneezed as they climbed up the creaky ladder. Boxes were stacked everywhere, covered with cobwebs. They began opening them one by one, old uniforms, medals, family photos. Then Emily found a smaller wooden box pushed deep into a corner. It was marked with black ink, L.M. Her pulse quickened. Ryan, look at this. Inside the box were letters, photos, and a small silver locket. Emily picked up one of the photos. It showed Lily Matthews smiling near a lake, her arm around a young man. On the back of the photo was a date, June 1994. But there was something strange. Someone had cut out a third person from the edge of the photo. Only a hand remained on Lily's shoulder. Ryan frowned. Why would someone cut a person out of this photo? Emily whispered, because that person didn't want to be seen. She opened the locket. Inside was a tiny picture of Lily, and on the other side, the initials D.H. David Hill, Ryan said suddenly. George's younger brother. He used to teach at Lily's high school. Emily's eyes widened. Wait, the sheriff's brother was Lily's teacher? Ryan nodded slowly. Yes. And he disappeared a few months after Lily did. George claimed he moved away for work. But no one ever heard from him again. A chill ran down Emily's spine. You think David had something to do with Lily's disappearance? Ryan looked grim. If he did, George might have covered it up to protect him. Before they could say another word, a noise echoed from below, the sound of a door closing hard. Emily's heart skipped a beat. Did you lock the front door? Ryan's voice was low. I thought Mrs. Hill did. They looked at each other. Then footsteps creaked on the floor below. Slow. Heavy. Ryan motioned for silence. He pulled out his flashlight and whispered, "Stay here." He climbed halfway down the ladder. The living room was empty. The front door now stood wide open, swinging slightly in the wind. When he came back up, the wooden box was gone. Emily's eyes widened in horror. It was right here. They searched frantically, but the box had vanished. Whoever had entered the house had taken it and left without a trace. Ryan cursed under his breath. Someone's been watching us. They knew we'd come here. Mrs. Hill rushed upstairs when she heard the noise. "What's happening? What did you find?" Emily forced a shaky smile. "Nothing important, ma'am. Just old papers." Ryan gave her a look that said, "Don't say a word." Back in the car, Emily stared out the window. "That box was proof," she whispered. "Photos, letters all gone." Ryan nodded, gripping the wheel tightly. "But we still know what was in it. That's something." Emily took out her phone and looked again at the one photo she had secretly snapped in the attic, the Polaroid with Lily and the mysterious hand. She zoomed in. The ring on the hand, a silver ring with an engraving, looked familiar. She checked her earlier pictures of the diary page, and there it was again in a faint ink sketch drawn on the corner, the same ring. It wasn't just a coincidence. Someone close to Lily had drawn that ring, and whoever wore it was connected to her death. Emily whispered to herself, "Whoever took that box, still doesn't want the truth to come out." The car drove away, the fog swallowing the Hill house behind them. And in the quiet attic they just left, under the floorboards, one small thing still remained, a single torn photograph corner showing the initials DH. The truth was still there, waiting to be found. The next morning, the rain had stopped, but the sky still looked heavy, like it was keeping secrets. Emily couldn't stop thinking about that missing box from the attic. Someone had taken it, someone who knew what was inside. Detective Ryan Brooks met her at a small diner just outside town. The smell of coffee filled the air, and country music played softly in the background. Ryan looked tired, his eyes red from lack of sleep. "I called the police," he said quietly, "but there were no fingerprints, no sign of forced entry. Whoever took that box had a key." Emily frowned. "A key? You mean someone close to Mrs. Hill?" Ryan nodded. "Maybe. Or someone who's been inside that house before." They both sat in silence for a moment. Then Emily spoke softly, "Ryan, what do you know about David Hill, the sheriff's brother?" Ryan leaned back in his chair, thinking. He was quiet. Smart. Worked as a history teacher at Maplewood High. Students liked him. But when Lily went missing, rumors started. People said they saw them talking a lot, maybe too much. Then suddenly, David left town. No goodbye. No trace. Emily took a deep breath. And no one ever connected him to the case. "George Hill shut it down before anyone could," Ryan said. "Said his brother had nothing to do with it. I was young back then, still believed in rules. I wish I'd pushed harder." Emily looked out the window, her mind racing. If Lily and David were close, maybe she wrote about him in her diary. Maybe that torn page was part of a bigger story. Ryan nodded. "We need to find the rest of that diary." Later that day, Emily drove to Maplewood High School, where Lily had once studied. The school looked old now, with cracked walls and faded paint, but inside, the hallways still echoed with memories. She met Mrs. Palmer, the current librarian, a kind woman in her 60s. "Lily Matthews," Emily said, showing her a picture. "Do you remember her?" Mrs. Palmer smiled sadly. "Oh, yes. Sweet girl. Always writing, always daydreaming. She spent hours here in the library. I still remember the day she disappeared. Everyone was heartbroken." Emily hesitated, then asked, "Did she ever write for the school magazine or leave any journals behind?" The librarian thought for a moment, then led her to the storage room. Old boxes were stacked against the wall. She opened one labeled School Year 1994. Inside were newspapers, photos, and notebooks. As Emily went through them, her hand stopped on a small leather-bound journal, initials LM carved on the cover. Her heart jumped. This was hers, she whispered. She opened it carefully. Most pages were about normal teenage things, school, friends, dreams. But near the end, the tone changed. He said he loves me. But we have to keep it secret. If my parents find out, they'll never forgive me. He promised me we'd leave Maplewood one day. Emily's breath caught. The handwriting was clear. Lily was writing about David Hill. But the last page was different. It ended mid-sentence. He said we'd meet by the lake after school, but... And that was it. Torn off the same page Emily had found in the desk. She took photos of every page and hurried out, her mind spinning. That evening, Emily met Ryan again at his house. She showed him the pictures from the journal. He read quietly, his face darkening with every line. So it's true, he said finally. Lily was in a relationship with David Hill. Emily nodded. And the last page, the one I found, was her final entry. She must have written it the day she disappeared. Ryan sighed. That explains why George Hill shut down the case. He was protecting his own brother. But where's David now? Emily asked. If he's still alive, maybe he's the one sending the warnings. Ryan shook his head slowly. Or someone else who knows the truth. Just then, there was a knock at the door. Ryan opened it to find Mrs. Hill, trembling, her eyes wet. Mrs. Hill. Emily stood up. Are you okay? The old woman nodded weakly. I didn't tell you everything, she said, her voice shaking. You need to know the truth before it's too late. They helped her sit down. David was troubled, she whispered. He was kind once, but after Lily vanished, he changed. He came home one night crying, covered in mud. George questioned him, but David wouldn't talk. 2 days later, he left. George told everyone he'd moved away. But... She stopped, her eyes full of tears. I never saw him again. And George, he never forgave himself. He spent years trying to hide what happened. Emily's heart pounded. Mrs. Hill, do you know what really happened to Lily? Mrs. Hill wiped her eyes. I only know what I found years later. A silver locket buried under the old farmhouse floor. George told me to forget it. Said it was better that way. But I couldn't. Ryan's eyes widened. The farmhouse? Where's that? About 5 miles from here, she whispered. It belonged to David before he disappeared. An hour later, Emily and Ryan reached the abandoned Hill farmhouse. The place looked frozen in time, broken windows, dust everywhere, and ivy crawling up the walls. With flashlights in hand, they searched the rooms. The air felt heavy, cold. In what used to be a small study, Emily noticed a loose floorboard. She knelt and pried it open. Inside was something wrapped in a piece of cloth. Her hands trembled as she unwrapped it, a silver locket, engraved, L.M&D. Ryan examined it. This is it. This proves their relationship. But there was more. Beneath the locket lay a photo of Lily and David, both smiling by the lake. Emily looked closer. Something dark was smeared across the photo's corner. Dirt, or dried blood. She shivered. This is where it happened. Ryan nodded slowly. We need to get this to the police. Maybe we can reopen the case. As they walked toward the door, Emily noticed something written faintly on the wall, a message scratched into the paint. Forgive me, Lily. Her stomach turned cold. Ryan whispered, he confessed, right here. Emily looked around one last time. The air felt heavy, almost alive. Somewhere in that quiet house, the past still lingered watching. They left in silence, the storm clouds gathering again above Maplewood. Emily didn't know it yet, but the discovery inside that farmhouse was only part of the truth. The final piece, the one that would reveal everything, was still waiting to be found. In a place she least expected. The next morning, the sun broke through the clouds for the first time in days. Maplewood looked calm again, but Emily knew peace was an illusion. The silver locket and photo they had found in the farmhouse were sitting on the table in front of her, wrapped carefully in a plastic bag. Detective Ryan Brooks sat across from her. Neither had slept. The police lab confirmed the initials on the locket, Ryan said quietly. They match Lily Matthews' DNA. And there's something else, traces of blood under the photo paper. Emily leaned forward. Whose blood? Male, Ryan said. We're still waiting for a match. But I already have a guess. Emily swallowed hard. David Hill. Ryan nodded. If he really tried to hide what he did, something might have gone wrong. Maybe George buried the truth literally. The word sent a chill down Emily's spine. Later that day, the police reopened the Lily Matthews cold case. For the first time in 30 years, reporters crowded outside the Maplewood Sheriff's office. People who had forgotten Lily's name were now saying it again quietly, with sadness and curiosity. Emily watched from a distance, notebook in hand. She wasn't just a journalist anymore, she was part of the story. She received a call from the forensic team that afternoon. The man on the phone sounded tense. Miss Carter, we tested the locket and the old cloth it was wrapped in. There's another DNA sample, not just Lily's. Emily's heart skipped a beat. Whose? George Hill's, the man said. The sheriff. She froze. Are you sure? Absolutely. She hung up slowly. Ryan noticed her pale face. What happened? The blood on the cloth, it's George Hill's, she whispered. The sheriff tried to cover up his brother's crime, but he must have gotten hurt doing it. Ryan frowned deeply. Or maybe he didn't just cover it up. Maybe he was there. That evening, Emily drove back to the Hill residence. The house looked the same, but something felt off. The curtains were drawn tight. She knocked gently. After a moment, Mrs. Hill opened the door. She looked fragile, holding onto the frame for support. Mrs. Hill, Emily said softly. We found the locket. The police confirmed everything. It's over. Tears welled up in the old woman's eyes. Over, she repeated, her voice trembling. Child, it will never be over. Emily stepped closer. You knew, didn't you? You knew what happened that night. Mrs. Hill looked down. Yes, she whispered. I knew. Emily's breath caught. Tell me the truth, please. Lily deserves it. The old woman took a deep breath. It was an accident, at first. David and Lily met by the lake. George followed them. He wanted to stop it, said it would ruin David's life. But things got out of control. There was shouting, and then Lily fell. Emily felt her chest tighten. Fell. Mrs. Hill nodded slowly. Hit her head on the rocks. She didn't move. George panicked. He told David to leave, to disappear. Then he buried her near the lake and burned the diary. But one page survived, the one you found. Emily's eyes filled with tears. He kept that page, hidden in his desk. Mrs. Hill nodded. He couldn't destroy it. It was his punishment. Every day, he'd look at that drawer and remember what he did. The truth hit Emily like a storm. The sheriff, the man trusted to protect everyone, had spent his life guarding a lie. Why tell me this now? Emily asked softly. Mrs. Hill's voice shook. Because you were meant to find that desk. I sold it on purpose. I knew whoever found that page would finally tell Lily's story. Emily stared at her, speechless. You wanted this to come out. The old woman nodded, tears streaming down her face. Secrets destroy souls, Miss Carter. George died with guilt eating him alive. I won't die the same way. 2 weeks later, police teams searched the area near Maplewood Lake. After hours of digging, they found human remains wrapped in what was left of an old sheriff's jacket. The DNA matched Lily Matthews. And beside the remains, buried in the soil, was a rusted silver ring engraved with the initials DH. David Hill was never found. Some believed he changed his name and disappeared. Others said he drowned himself the night after Lily died. No one knew for sure. Emily's article was published soon after. The title read, "The Diary That Solved a 30-Year Mystery." It spread across the country, shared thousands of times. People praised her for finding the truth. But when Emily reread her own words, she didn't feel proud, she felt heavy, as if she had opened an old wound the town had tried to forget. Late one night, she sat at her desk, the same old desk that had started everything. She placed the original diary page under a glass frame. Her phone buzzed. It was an email, no subject, no sender. She hesitated before opening it. Inside, only one line. "You think you found all the pages?" Emily froze. Her hands went cold. She looked at the framed diary page and noticed, for the first time, faint numbers written in the corner, page 47. Her voice trembled. If this is page 47, then where's the rest? The wind outside rattled her window. The desk creaked softly, like a whisper from the past. Emily slowly turned off the lamp and stared at the drawer where she had found the page months ago. Something inside her told her the story wasn't finished. Because somewhere in Maplewood, another page might still be waiting. And with it, another secret that had never seen the light. The end, or maybe not.